Every day, the world continues to see injustices towards the Black community, whether it be police brutality, blatant racism, or just a disgraceful amount of inequality that's still pondering in the world. We must be reminded of their names, whether it be Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Brandon Bernard, and the countless other unknown people whose lives have been taken from racial segregation alone. It's time to change for the better, and that is why John Lewis is an important figure to have our school named after. Our current name represents John Witherspoon, who was in fact a slave owner. Having John Lewis represent our school would open many opportunities for students to learn about what they can do to help put a stop to all the injustices and inequalities that sadly occur so often.
John Lewis grew up during racial segregation. He was born outside of Troy, Alabama on February 21, 1940. In 1957, he would protest at lunch counters, but during this, he was arrested. This didn't stop him, and he went on to participate in the Freedom Rides of 1961. In 1963, he became chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and in the same year, he helped plan the March on Washington. He ran for office in 1981 and won a seat in the Atlanta City Council. In 1986, he was elected to the House of Representatives. Since entering office, he has called for healthcare reform measures to fight poverty and improvements in education. That is why the school should represent him. During 1963, John Lewis became one of the Big Six. These people organized the March on Washington. John Lewis was also elected as chairman of the SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, until 1966. The Atlanta newspaper approved John Lewis, and he was a fan favorite to the white liberal establishment. Few years later, during November, there was a general election, and John Lewis was part of it. One of his earliest opponents was Portia Scott, and John Lewis defeated her in the election in 1986. A few years later, Lewis came to one of the members in the House of Representatives from Georgia's 5th District in 1986 and ended his term in 2018. John Lewis tried to be accepted into Troy State University, but in order to achieve that, his parents needed to sign a contract that regarded a lawsuit against the state of Alabama, which would put his neighbors, his family, and himself in danger. Martin Luther King Jr. informed him about this. Lewis wanted to go to this university because the majority of the attended students there were white. John wanted to help desegregate the school. This really reflects on how much of a positive influence and role model he is and was, because this action can inspire so many people around the world, especially young people, including students at PUMS and the students entering the schools in the next years.
John Lewis fought from the day he was born into this world for one thing. That thing was equality. By naming our school after him, we would honor his achievements and legacy in remembrance of him. He protested at places such as lunch counters, and his arrest never stopped him. He worked for his 50 honorary degrees, including one from Princeton University, and didn't let any discrimination stop him. Not to mention, former President Barack Obama awarded John Lewis the Presidential Medal of Freedom. John Lewis made history in many ways, and one of the biggest being that he helped organize the Voting Rights March from Selma to Montgomery. It wasn't easy for John Lewis to do all that he did, but he stayed determined and kept fighting peacefully and in a civil manner. We need his name as a model for our school to look up to and show younger generations to fight for what they believe in.